Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and today I'm proud to bring you on Hercules and the Space Gods, the URANTIA book with the one, the only, the legendary, nay, the cosmic Nick Curto. Greetings, Nick.
Oh, thank you for that wonderful introduction. The check will be in the mail. And
Thank you.
you said it just like I wrote it. Thank you so much, my friend.
Well, I look forward to your show as always.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to the show too, very much so. And again, it's the Urantia book with Nick Curto, and I'm certainly a longtime reader of this incredible book. Uh, I was raised Roman Catholic. One of my aunts was a nun in the Catholic Church. I even thought of becoming a priest when I was in my late teens, but I decided to go into the creative arts instead. And but I have never lost my interest in spirituality for sure. And when I came to New York after graduating from the Massachusetts College of Art and Design in Boston, Mass, to pursue a creative career here in Manhattan, I really went full force into developing wonderful friendships with people of other cultures, of other spiritual callings, and that became a amazing journey for me. I'm so happy that I did that, and I got many wonderful experiences from different cultures, and again from people who had very different religious beliefs. I was in a Unitarian church for a while, and for about 2 years, the All Souls Unitarian Church, which is located in the East 80s, very close to where I live in Manhattan. And I was there for 2 years. And on a Sunday morning, it was sunny. I was sitting there. It was almost time for the service to end. And the minister said, and for our last reading today, we're going to read from the Urantia book. And I thought, that is a very interesting word. I've never heard that in my life. Urantia, maybe that's Eastern Indian or something like that, perhaps. So the minister ended up reading about I believe, 3 or 4 paragraphs. And I was like a deer in the headlights. What he was reading was absolutely blowing me away. My thoughts were, is this possibly the book I've been looking for all my life? This is so cutting edge. It's so loving, and it's incredible. And when he said, "Go in peace, the service is over," everybody filed out of the church. I stayed for about 15 minutes in the pew because I literally was catching my breath. Literally, I was all alone in the church remembering that funny word, Urantia, Urantia. I walked home, I wrote it down, and then luckily, a few weeks later, there was this big expo in Midtown Manhattan, and they had a whole section of spirituality. And when I went into that section of the room, way in the back, there was this big sign. It said, the Urantia book. So, like a heat-seeking missile, I went right for it. Other people were handing me on the aisles that I passed literature for all their spiritual callings, which I thanked them very much and accepted that. And finally got to the Rancher book table at the very end. And I said, folks, I just heard of this book. I have a million questions. And one of the people there, who is now one of my dearest friends, said, it would be our honor to answer the questions that you have. In 5 minutes, we're going to be on the big stage for about a half an hour. It's the only time during this time when we get to be on the big stage to talk about the book. Why don't you come with us and listen, and then come back to the booth, and we'll be happy to answer your questions. That seemed like a good deal to me, so I did. And I sat there, and they opened it. About 3 or 4 people were on stage, I think 2 men and 2 women, talking about the book. And I immediately felt that I was in the right place with the right people. I strongly felt that. It was an amazing feeling. I went back after the half an hour was up, and I fired many, many questions to them. And they were amazingly good at answering in detail the questions I had. And they told me that two longtime Urantia book readers, Robin and Helene Jorgensen from the Soho area of New York City had a study group on Tuesday nights, and it was free, and I'd be very welcome to attend, which I did. And I was there for over 30 years. 30 years in the Tuesday night study group. I learned so much. They're wonderful people, and their study group was amazing. And I'll never forget that. I owe them so much because of the study group. And so here I am now. I'm a member of the Urantia Society of Greater New York, which I've also been a part of for over 30 years. And I'm currently the chair of the Outreach Committee. And this is the second term I've served on that capacity with wonderful people in the committee. And we do outreach in every way we can think of to help people know about the Urantia book. Okay, that's the short version of me. I want to introduce my guest for this evening. I'm very excited to have such an amazing man, Stuart Kerr. A warm welcome to you, sir.
Thank you, Nick. Maybe I should tell you a little bit about myself and how I came into the knowledge of the URANTIA book, if you guys would like to hear that.
Very much so. That was good. My very first question. So you are a mind reader. Please go ahead. Take your time.
Yeah, well, to me, I had a troublesome childhood with my father. At the age of 2.5, where I had my first consciousness, he was he was subject to a lot of physical violence to me, and that caused me. But at the age of 4.5, I made a decision. One, not to let him ever bully me into crying again. One, and I never did. And then two, I said, I don't ever want to grow up to be a man like my father. He became an anti-father figure, and everything he was, I was determined. I said, I'm not going to allow that to happen to me. But in my life, I come to a point where I had a sort of a major angst about the world and about God regarding this, the suffering of the innocent. We all know in this world, there's an awful lot of suffering. And it's an assault on my sensibilities, all the suffering that happens in this world. And I got to a point, I said, the buck has to stop somewhere. Who is responsible for all of this incomprehensible suffering of the world? And it came down to the point, in my childhood, my mother was the organist at St. Paul's Episcopal Church. And I had to become a choir boy because on Saturday we'd have to go and she'd practice and whatever. But I always loved, anytime the sermons had Jesus in it, the nature of Jesus and his loving nature comes through, even in the gospel, that, the gospels, the four gospels, his nature comes through as being incredibly warm and loving and all of that Christ-like spirit. But the Father in heaven, I had a battle with. And it came down to a point, I said, I'm going to take him to cosmic court and say, why is this world the way it is and who's responsible? And it has to be him because he created this world. Now, people say, well, God does not participate in sin and all of these different things. We're the ones who's responsible. But he created us where this is possible. And the suffering, the assault on my sensibilities of the sufferings of this world really became a major part of my whole young adulthood. And in order to take him to cosmic court, it really got to a point where I said, do I want to live in this world the way it is? And if this Father is not the best, the creator of the best of all worlds, if this is the best of all worlds, it's his responsibility. So I came down to a point, I said, do I want to live and on the merry-go-round or get off the merry-go-round and not be a part of this anymore? But before I did that, I said, I better know about what the world has understood about God and go into it with some degree of knowledge. And what I did was, in my early teens, I started reading the Bible, the Old Testament and the New Testament, to know what its basis was. But then I started to study all of the major world religions. And I spent all of my young adulthood studying things like Buddhism, Hinduism. I've read the Quran, both translated in a conservative and a liberal way to understand the Quran. Because if you're going to talk about Islam, you better understand what they're talking about. So I spent my life doing that, but I also got into trying to understand philosophy, the history of philosophy from the ancient pre-Socratic Greeks, except all to the present, to know what the world has done to try to understand reality that we're all swimming in this reality of creation. And I got to a point where the problem that I had in finally prosecuting the Father was that I knew that in this world there was the reality of love. And certainly Jesus was the epitome of that love. And if that's true, and the Father is the creator of all things, he was the creator of love. So I had an angst where it finally hit a head at the age of 20 years old, where I was going to Georgia Tech, and on my own, my family had broken up. I had no money, and I was going to be basically homeless on the streets of Atlanta, Georgia, at Georgia Tech. And for the first time, this was on Thanksgiving weekend. Everybody goes home, but I had no home to go to, and I'm living in the dormitory room. And I finally said, I'm really at the bottom of my rope, and you don't know how empty you are. What happened was I got down, and for the first time, I prayed to the Father, and I asked, I said, help me. And it was an instantaneous moment, like when St. Paul was going to Damascus. He was knocked off his camel when the cosmic Christ says, why do you persecute me? And it took his senses. And I had in this moment, and it was outside of time, it was an immediate opening of the Father. You don't know how empty you are until you've been filled. And I was filled with his loving nature. And at that point, and it wasn't a matter of time, it was like instantaneous, complete conversion in that moment. And I said, okay, look, I know you're loved. And I said, I don't understand what you're doing in this world, but I know your loving nature. And now I am on board. I'm never going to fight you again. Now, I will live. Do I have to wait until I die and go pass onward to know what you're actually doing and why all these things are the way it is? And it's interesting because I said that was the first thing I asked of the Father. I said, do I have to wait until I pass on to know what's going on? Now, this was Thanksgiving. I was 20 years old in 1973. My birthday is in April of 1974, and my mother, the breakup of the family, she was out in California following Swami Muktananda. And on my birthday, she called, we talked on the phone, and she said, I'm sending you something for your birthday. And I said, okay, what is it? She says, well, it's a big blue book. Oh. And I go, okay, well, that's interesting. How long is it? It's about 2,100 pages. I said, okay, that's a big book. And I said, what's it about? And she says, it's all about God and the nature of reality on spiritual levels, on mind levels, of the whole creation level. And it talks about all of that. And I said, okay, well, who wrote the book? Because I was at that time, I became a scientist. I was very, very focused on details and facts. And I said, who wrote the book? And she said, celestial beings. And I go, okay. Now, I said, Mom, look, I know you're out in California. This is 1974. A lot of stuff was coming, and I'm living on the East Coast. And all these influences of California and the new age levels of spirituality. And I'm literally going saying, celestial beings wrote this book. That was the hard part for me to understand. So I said, here's what I'm going to do, Mom. When you give me the book, it's 2,100 pages. I will read open-minded, not to try to shoot it down, but with an open mind, the first 100 pages of this 2,100-page book. Now, this is the incredible thing, because the first 100 pages of the book are 5 papers of 196 papers, each one's topically oriented. The first 5 papers of this book are on the nature of the Father in heaven. And this is what blew me away, because as I'm reading through papers 1 through 5, there are 5 papers talk about the nature of God and his purpose and everything. I said, this is the Father who I now knew because I had that experience before. And when I asked him, I said, do I have to wait? So I'm reading through these 5 papers. and I'm getting excited. I'm saying this is the best thing I have ever read. I read all the spiritual, sacred writings of the world that they had to offer, and nothing talked about God as these first 5 papers on the nature of God. And I read the book, 2,100 pages, cover to cover, in just about 4 months. I mean, I couldn't even go into the bathroom and sit down, and I'd had the book everywhere I had it. And I read the whole thing. And then I went back and reread the Bible to see how it corresponded to the Bible that I had studied all my early adulthood. And then I went back and reread the book cover to cover, 2,100 pages. And I always kept by my side of the bed where I was reading notebooks. And every time I get an aha moment or a little detail, I wrote it down, because otherwise it's like when you wake up and you have a great dream, but within 10 minutes, it's like the mist in the morning when the sun comes up, it disappears and you forget all about what the dream was all about. So I always keep my notebook to write down my aha moments. And I have spent now over 50 years, half a century, literally since the age of 21, every single day of my life has been devoted to this revelation. So that's my testimony. I just want to share that. I cannot tell you it has changed my life. It has made me a better human being. It has taught me how the nature of love is a dynamic presence between us and our brothers and sisters on this world, and to open our hearts, to open God's love into us and let it flow out like a faucet. As it flows through us, we experience, if we take the Father's love, we can hold it in our hearts, but we only get that little bit of love. But if we open it up and let it flow from us to our brothers and sisters who are all suffering like I have suffered, and open up my heart to all of that, now you gain an immeasurable amount of love. You become part of that dynamic of love by letting it flow through you. So it has changed my life. It made me a better father. When I held my first daughter, my daughter Allison was born when I was 30 years old. And at the hospital, I remember holding her in my arms, and I realized for the first time I was no longer a child of co-creation. I was now a co-creator of creation. Now I'm holding this little infant girl in my arms, and I'm saying, I am going to be the best father that I could possibly be to you. And I thank God for what I learned in the inspirations of the URANTIA book to make me a better person and a better father. It has changed the nature of my life. So that's my testimony. That's exactly who I am, and that's what I've been influenced by. And I'm 72 now, over 50 years of studying it, and I still cannot stop rereading all the inspirations that are. I mean, I could go on for 2 weeks without sleep and talk about the beauty of this book, but I'm not going to do that, because I'll give it back to you. But that's who I am. That's my nature. And as I said, I've been blessed. It's been a grace in my life to be inspired by this remarkable revelation called the URANTIA book.
Stuart, what a journey. There's an echo here. Do you have a speakerphone?
No.
Okay, I had a terrible echo. It's gone now. Stuart, your journey that you so wonderfully shared with us, the personal story that you have, it's so beautiful and so moving. Truly, I really was quite taken with your honesty and your life of bouncing back. Time and time again, when you could have been dragged into the mud, literally, and you had the spiritual energy to say, I'm not going to sink. I'm going to rise above this. And it really is a beautiful story. I'm quite moved. I really am. And I think that our viewers will also be very moved by that, because it's the kind of thing you can't make up. It's just got to be part of your life. I'll tell you the truth, it would make quite an interesting movie, a spiritual movie. I'm very serious, and I'm going to encourage you right now on my program to think about writing your life in a book. I really think that that's going to inspire a great many people worldwide.
Yeah.
just from what you just said.
Well, I would add one thing if I can, Nick.
Sure,
I
sure.
would recommend to everybody here, as my mother did with me, I would give everybody here who are not familiar with the Urantia book, 2,100 pages. Read the first 100 pages, the first 5 papers of the 196 papers of topical studies. Read the first 5 and open your mind. And if you're not convinced, I mean, I'll put money down, 99.6% pure, you're all gonna, I can't see how you can't, the love and the insights that are part of this book. Read the first 100 pages. That's the challenge. Read it. You don't have to read the whole thing, but everybody, you can put 100 pages into the possibility that there's something very special in this world regarding this opening of God's reality and his insights of reality and his love. Read the first 5 papers. If you don't want to go beyond there, hey, good enough. But that's the challenge. It's like I said, if I'm going to talk about Islam, I read and studied the Quran. Otherwise, you have no right to criticize the religion of Islam unless you understand it. And that's my nature. And by the way, my profession has been as a industrial scientist, a chemist. I have 14 U.S. patents that I've been loved because I created new technologies that I brought to industrial corporations around the world. And to me, it's been a wonderful life in terms of the joy. I mean, I would create new technologies, which is fun, but I got paid well for it as well. So again, my life has been a pure blessing, and every single time when I go into communion with the Father and connect with his presence, I just get filled with love and joy, the joy of life as a gift. And that to me it's something that I always give my thanks to him. He saved me and he brought me into a position where now I know I'm a beloved child of God and so on. But that's the 100-page challenge. Read the first 5 papers, and I guarantee you will not be the same if you do that.
I just want to add to what you just said that I've likened when people ask me about the Urantia book to potato chips, because I said, you're going to take a few of those potato chips and you're not going to stop. You're going to take a few of those chapters of the Urantia book and you are going to be absolutely blown away, literally, on an emotional level, on a spiritual level, on an intellectual level, and you will want to read the entire book. You will. That happened to me, and happily so. And my life has changed incredibly for the better. Um, it's such a joy to tell other people about the book because it's like the best present you've ever had. You're the best present you could ever hope for, and you want to share that. And I feel very strongly about that. That's one of the reasons I've been in outreach for so long. In fact, I don't know if you know this or not, but my background is in advertising and design, and I just designed a kit which would be for any Urantia book reader to get to purchase, and they would get the tools for outreach. And I'm going to tell you briefly about this kit because I want to make a point of that. The kit has, for one thing, a string backpack and a tote bag. And I designed the logo with the big word letters, the Urantia book, and then underneath it, a little phrase that gives them a whets their appetite for what they were going to find in the book. Uh, when you go shopping, when you go out to a movie or anything, when you have a backpack or a tote bag and you have something on it from a different company, everybody reads it. I have these. I also made a badge, a circle badge about 3 inches that also has the Urantia book. And people have stopped me. What is that? People in the elevator, people on the street, they see the bag and all that. One other thing I did was I have a page, an 8.5 by 11, and it has a 1 page about the Urantia book, like a flyer. And I have 4 of those per page so that someone can take that page, which has the 4 capsules of what the book is about with the websites, and they can go to any Xerox machine, and every page will give you four brochures, and they can put those on on boards, on boards, and the peg boards. They can bring them. They can show them to people. When people have come up to me and said, "What is that button?" or "What is that tote bag about?" If I don't have a minute because we're in transit or something, I just hand them one of these and say, "Just take a look at this, please." And so I've made that available now to Urantia book readers worldwide. And it's going to be it's currently been manufactured, and I have the prototype, and now I have the actual kit. It's available, and it's going to be, I think, a real godsend to anyone who wants to outreach and they don't know quite how to do it. This is the easy way to do it. You just simply live by putting those things on you, or bringing your, when you go to a movie or you go shopping, you bring the bag or the tote bag. And it does work. And I've had a lot of people look at it and come up to me. And I love that. I love the fact that they that interested.
I want to share with everybody here, Nick, you and I have been friends now for 35 years plus.
Yep.
So I know Nick, and for everybody here, I know him well. I know him inside and out, because as we do, if you're truly friends on a spiritual level, that it's something that creates something valuable, an interaction. They say the greatest thing in this world is experience with other persons, other people. And that's really the best. You can't be a hermit in a cave by yourself and reach enlightenment. You must do it by interacting with each other. So I just want people to know, I've known you, Nick, now for 35 years. And that's a major portion of a friendship that I cherish. And I'm so glad, like I said, that you invited me here tonight. But yeah, so Nick is definitely filled with energy. As anybody who knows Nick, as you hear from him, he's energetic. He has a need to go out there and let this drive his life, and it's great to be motivated, Nick. So thank you so much for being who you are, and I just want people to know that I'm definitely on your side as a friend.
Stuart, I treasure our friendship, very much treasure that. I always have, and I always will. And the movement, the Urantia movement, has also given me so many wonderful people in my life that I can't imagine living without knowing them, and sharing the book with them on so many different levels. It is one of the joys of my life, as it certainly is with you and your testimony. And it's such a miracle, truly a miracle, to have such a text available to us in our lives at this time on this planet. Um, I want to go back a little bit because there's so many questions I want to ask you. I know for a fact that this 60 minutes is not going to be enough, so I'm already going to ask you back for a part two and a part three in the months to come, because we've got a
You're
lot
going to
to
get
talk
bored
about.
with me. I'll show you how terribly boring I can be, but that's fine. I'm glad you have that enthusiasm for me. I feel good about it. Thank you, Nick.
Well, it's genuine for sure, absolutely for sure. And um, how did your mom, who was the original person, how did she come upon the book too? Do you know that?
Yeah, well, I don't recall who gave it to her. As I said, at that time, she was investigating all of the spiritual things. That 1974 was a big time in California of the New Age and new thinkings and so on. So, but yeah, just somebody passed her the blue book. The funny thing is, anybody who knows this history of the Urantia book and the people that are a part of the community, sometimes it seems unusual that the book finds its way to where it needs to end up. In other words, we know that there are angels in the world. There are our own guardian seraphim that guide us through life. But they're also here that many times we have providential interventions with our angels steering us to a point where we need to be for our greatest benefit. Our guardian seraphim are definitely a positive influence in our lives, and they definitely steer us to where we need to be. So I find that if you ask anybody who's gotten the URANTIA book, there are some amazing stories how individuals have received this book. Now, I don't like to say that I know for a fact that it's the angels who are involved in setting people who have an open mind and a hungry mind to understand things, that somehow they lead them to this book. But because I'm not into magic, I'm a scientist and I like facts and things like that. But it is coincidences, coinkydinks that these things are more than just accidental. Sometimes I think if you have a hunger, to know God and to know what's really going on and to have reality, our angels will steer us to where we need to be. Sometimes they'll steer us to interactions with human beings that you say, this is a pure coincidence, but it's not. There's rise in every single day of our life. When I pray with the Father and I commune with him, I also talk to my guardian seraphim. And I say, it is my will that you steer me with freedom to whoever I need to be steered to. That's a powerful prayer. If you believe that your guardian seraphim are there, that they're there for your benefit, they're connecting you to God insight, but they're also putting you in places where you need to be in this world that are more than just accidental. And I am a strong believer of that they do exactly that. And I would encourage people, open yourself up, realize that your guardian seraphim, they're part of your team. To me, they're not perfect. People in the Bible they say you don't worship the angels because they're not worthy to be worshipped. The Father is. The angels are like us, except on a spiritual level of being, but that they too are experiential. They're learning how to do things as we are learning. They're not coming in with all knowledge. They don't have it. We work together as a team. And sometimes I say to them, okay, guys, give me they'll steer us into challenging parts of life. And there are times I say to the guys, I call them my guys, but I say, hey, give me a vacation right now. You steered me into a lot of areas and it does drain me. I'd like a little, but I am just going to say, I think having our angels, they're real. I think that they are, as I say, I acknowledge them as part of my efforts because they want to be part of our lives and our life experiences. So I open myself up and say, steer me wherever you need to go. You're not abrogating my free will by doing so. That's a powerful prayer. If you sit there and say, I don't want to be led, now you're shutting the door. If you tell your angels and say, steer me to where I need to go, it's an amazing experience. 72 years of life, they have done it all my life. And every time you open your hearts and you open yourself to the light and the life of the Father in heaven in your lives, and it's powerful how much the Father in heaven wants his children to go through and grow in maturity and wisdom. That he wants that's a necessary. That's the other thing, by the way, about this URANTIA book. God is not the all-powerful God of Sinai of the Old Testament with the the explosions and the all of that. God is second Isaiah, one of the great works of the Old Testament. He is a still small voice within us. And that's really what I do. In my efforts, people say, well, I'm going to go and spend time in prayer with the Father, and then I'll go in and spend some time in worship. No. The goal is to have connection, to be in the presence of our Father in heaven in his light and his life as an unbroken communion. The gospel talks about Jesus going off be himself by himself to be at one in the presence of the Father. And when I do that, I share my joy with him and I thank him. I can't stop thanking the Father for what he has done in my life and the joy that he has brought into my life experiences. So that's my nature of interacting, unbroken communion where you get into the inner silence. And I just feel that joy of his presence, his light and his love are incomparable to anything that human life can offer. So that's just an encouragement to anybody. Open your minds, open your souls. Let the love in and be a part of it.
That is a beautiful way to express that. And I share with you that feeling that I've said to God, I'm yours. I'm yours. Make me your instrument of love, and I will do everything I can in to be that instrument for you, for my life and beyond. I'm I'm part of your team. I want to do your will, and I want to spread your love. And the Urantia book certainly is limitless love. That you when you start reading this, it becomes more than a book. It is an experience that is strong and powerful, and you feel as though every page has love in it and concern and compassion, and it's overwhelming. There are times in study groups where we actually read passages and everyone, the men, the women of all ages,
Yeah.
were crying. Were crying because it was so moving and beautiful and true.
And Nick, what they do is this: the idea that there are two things that the Urantia book reveals about the Father's nature. One, you can say, I'm going to do the will of the Father. You can be submissive. That's what Allah and the Quran talks about, to submit to his will. But the Urantia book says there's a higher degree of that, and it is my free will that his will be done.
Yes.
That's more powerful, because when you sit there and say, I am in alignment and in attunement, the other thing they say, the Father is not of his infinite and eternal nature. He is also experiential as a true Father to us as children. And they say the greatest gift, along with aligning our will to his, is to share our inner life with him. And that doesn't mean to be Saint Nick, Saint Stuart, or all of this. Share the bad things too. Share him your struggles with your faith. Let him know you don't have to be in his presence and put on a clean suit and clean shirt and, share the dirty stuff too. Share him the struggles that you're going at, because as a true father with his children, he wants his children to open up to him and his love, their challenges in life and what they're struggling with. As a father, that's what you want to hear, but you have to earn that trust. And the Father, I think, in my case, has earned that trust. But I think the greatest gift that you can do with the Father, to give back to him all the graces that you've gotten, is to share your inner life with him, good and bad. But let him steer you to a higher insight, more Godward, to the nature of what he wants as us, as his beloved sons and daughters in the family of God.
It also makes you look at the world. It makes you look at each person. It makes you look at animals and birds and trees and flowers with new eyes, with a love, an understanding of the miracles. And when someone says, well, I've never experienced a miracle in my life, I say to them, oh, yes, you have. Open your eyes, because everything is a miracle. The fact that you're there, the fact that you have personality, the fact that you are enjoying this incredible planet and all that the bountiful beauty that's in there, those are all miracles, both big and small. And when you get that vision of not taking anything for granted, um, it really changes your perspective totally. Don't you agree?
Yeah. Again, joy. The joy, and for instance, many people, they get together and they get into arguments and debates about their different, views of reality and argue. That's not something you will ever see in the Urantia community. We have throughout the week Zoom meetings where people from all over the world, readers of this book, come together. We don't argue with one another. One of the things that we do is we enjoy a viewpoint that's different than our own. That's diversity. We say, your experiences, you have a life that I have not lived, which means you have things of value that you can share with me. In this soul community that we do on a page. I mean, I'll get on a page with 20, 30 people from all over the world. And on that page, we are a true community of soul consciousnesses. And when we get together in that, they say, when two or more are gathered in my name, verily, I am truly there among them. In our URANTIA book experience, and to anybody, I wish you could all experience some of these. For instance, I'm part of something called the URANTIA University Institute. It's a series geared towards studies of the URANTIA book. And we meet, I think throughout the week, you have 5 or 6 of these Zoom meetings to discuss aspects of the URANTIA book. But when we do so, we may have up to 20, 30 people there. Everybody there is now focused under the light and love of the Father, in Jesus' presence, because he is truly there among us. Because if we're gathered in his spirit, he is, they say, this is not a symbol. This is true. He is truly among us in those aspects. Now, that's a miraculous experience that you do not just by yourself, but as a community of soul consciousnesses that we come together. And that's something that the culture of the URANTIA book has engendered as a different kind of human being on this world. We don't go into arguments or debates. What we do is say, give me your perspective because it's going to help me grow by expanding mine. And that is something of a shared love, a shared insight. And I can say it is a true soul conscious experience. When you come together in love, in his light, and in the nature of Jesus being among us at that time, there are times that I just, again, after coming together, and you guys do it with the society. You and I was part of the New York Society for a long time until I moved to North Carolina. But there's something about coming together. It's family of the family of God, that because now you come in without any boundaries and any in terms of sharing pure shared joy of love for one another, because the more love we give to each other, we're reflecting the love of the Father through us as well. And as I say, those are aspects of great joy. And that's something, again, I've never had a truth hair on the back of my neck that I had to swallow something from 2,100 pages of this book. Again, I'll give you my 100-page challenge. Read the Father papers. And if you understand that they're accessible, and it gives you an idea of who we are as his children and exactly what his presence is and exactly what his purposes are for his creation. So yeah, joy is a powerful, wonderful experience. I think too many people on this world don't know how to live in that moment of joy, because that's what life should be about, isn't it?
Absolutely. Well said, Stuart. And you mentioned the word diversity, and that really is so key to be able to listen to different ideas, to different
Absolutely.
thinking of different people, of different generations, of different age groups, and to celebrate the diversity that's there. And it's a miracle, really, to be able to talk to people from very different backgrounds, like
Yes.
you do on a regular basis, and celebrate the diversity that's there, because it's joyful. And you learn so much, always learning different aspects of what their journey has been and how they form their own personalities. And you get to learn so much more from people. Another part of that too, I want to share with you, is that you gain a radar. I will say the word radar, and the way I mean that is that people, in my experience, generate love, generate hostility, generate evil, generate goodness, and you pick it up. You get very sensitive to that, and it can be one person talking to another, or it could be you're walking in a crowd of people in Manhattan, and there are some people that give you this cold feeling. It's happened many times, and I'm thinking, you poor thing, you're something is so wrong there, and you feel it emotionally, even though you may not be speaking to them. They're generating a vibe. Call it a vibe. Also, there are people who generate love all around them. And you feel that, deeply feel that this is a loving person. Even before you say one word to them or they say one word to you, you have a feeling about them. Do you find that to be true with your own self?
Well, let me give you, there's a story here. There are things, again, in a miraculous life when you live in the joy of the Father. And I'm going to give you a story. I told you I was a professional chemist, industrial chemist for corporations around the world and so on. And when I was with General Electric and their silicone technology division, of which, I was a major presenter of those technologies, that I took this technology, and there was a company in Racine, Wisconsin. And over the years, in order to get a competitive edge, we brought them to new technologies that had not yet been discovered. And I was able to bring it into their factories and give them a competitive edge in their market. Now, that was a wonderful thing. And it's interesting because I was visiting them on a technical support area, not a salesman. A salesman, you have to come back with increased sales. That's not my case. I was able to go there and bring new technologies in a matter of joy for them because it gives them a competitive edge. Now, one day I was allowed to go to Racine with their president and 4 of his vice presidents, production and sales and all of his group, everybody in suit and ties and everything. And I took them to downtown Milwaukee to a German restaurant. And I had an open budget to take them because they're good customers. They're bringing good money into our General Electric at that time. And so we went in there, and the dinner there again was not to get new sales or anything. It was really to acknowledge and recognize the value that we had as partners, General Electric and this company. So we're sitting there, and rather than go and talk business, because here we had the president and his VPs, and we're all sitting down there, eating goose shank from the great restaurant at the time. But, and I thought in my mind, I said, we can go in here and talk business. But I said, that's not what we're going to do. I said to them, and I took the conversation and I steered it not into business matters or all the joys of the competitive advantages. I talk to them and I say, let's talk. I asked the president and everybody at the same time, I said, what are your values and meanings of your life? What makes your life important? And it's interesting, you have now the president there, and they all started to open up their personal feelings about love, their family, their wives, their people, things that mean something to them. So here we are, not talking business at all. Here we're talking about the actual values of life itself that we're sharing. Now, usually these kind of business dinners go about an hour, hour and a half at the most. We spent 2.5 hours talking at that table. And when we left, and this is what amazed me, the miracle of God, we didn't just shake hands and say goodbye to everybody. Everybody gave everybody a hug. Literally a human, individual love connection there. And I thank God for it. When I remember going back to the hotel room there and just saying, thank you, Lord, for giving me this insight of opening up and talking. When people, what you can do in this world, I don't teach people the book or the concepts or things like that. I talk about human experiences and meanings and values of life. You can't go wrong with that. Any human being you ever talk about and say, what is it in life that's valuable to you, that brings meaning into your life? They want to open up. And usually they don't have opportunity to share their inner life that way. But when you do that, we can all be a part of opening people's up in terms of their true inner spiritual meanings and values of their lives. And it's an extraordinary thing to witness, to be a part of that energy. So again, this is every single day of our lives. When you get this joy, it's just another day, another opportunity to work in the joy of being in the Father's light and life, and being a part of it, to say, like I say, it is my will that your will be done, but I also want to be functional. I want to bring into this world the cosmic consciousness of this planet, the nature of what life really should be. We live in such a dark, barbaric nature of the world that we sometimes need to open it up and become more important in terms of what are the true values of life itself. And anytime you talk to somebody, that's a great starting point. Don't go into ideologies or heck, politics, leave that one alone, but go into actual meanings and values, and people will open up. And it's always a warm sharing of love.
Stuart, we're on such the same page here on so many levels. It's wonderful. It just is. I'd like to go from what you just said to how can people access you, perhaps a website or a email, whatever you want to give out. That would be very appreciated.
Yeah, I have. Well, I would say email is the best way, and I'll give it to you. Let me. What it is? It's Kerr, Kerr, Stuart, Kerr Stuart 56 at yahoo.com. And I have all kinds of things that I can share, or just let people. I don't know, just to even be in connection and communication with you. But I would more than welcome anybody who might want to send me an email. And yeah, new experiences, opportunities. You never know what's going to turn up.
Boy, that is the truth in so many ways. I just want to put on right now, while the last few minutes of the program, that the URANTIA book can be found on a couple of incredible websites. One of them I'm going to give slow, if you want to get a pencil also. It's www.urantiabook.org. That
Yeah,
is an incredible website. It will give you so much about the URANTIA book. Also, you can read the URANTIA book in its entirety there. And if you speak a different language and read a different languages, I believe now there's 29, correct me if I'm wrong, Stuart, and more to come. And you're part of that amazing project of translations to different world languages, which is also an incredible project. And you have been a part of that for many, many years. Congratulations for that. That alone is amazing. And again, many people all over the world now can participate in the joy of reading such an incredible book live for free. Or they can listen to it. That's another part of that it's been recorded so that people
that's
can
right.
listen to it. I know people who drive their car to work or on long trips, and they can listen to the book. How wonderful is that? That's another way of accessing this book. Um, my producer, Hercules, how many more minutes do we have now before we have to shove off? Oh, good. Okay. Stuart, within a couple of minutes, I know this is always, of course, a challenge, but what would you say to people that now we've tempted them to take a look at this book either on the in a bookstore or on the internet? What would you say to people who say, you know what, I'm going to take a look at this. This sounds interesting to me. Maybe you could talk to them just a couple of minutes, please, of that subject.
I think it's really what I did here, and thank you for giving me, both you and Hercules, to give me this stage here to express myself. It's what it is I give my testimony. That's all I can do, is give you a testimony. If you feel that there's anything that's real about what I'm trying to say and share with you all, my testimony is there's great value. And I'm just going to reiterate, take that 100-page challenge. For your life, the possibility to change your life forever, 100 pages is not hard as an investment of time. And I challenge anybody, read the Father Papers. And if it doesn't change your life, that's okay. I'm not against any, but if it does, holy cow, that's it. My testimony, there's the challenge. And I say, the gift that you can open up to your own self, connected to the Father in heaven. Just try it. What can you lose? But keep your mind open. Don't go in there and say, well, I'm going to debunk this all and whatever. Just read the first 5 papers. And that's it. That's my testimony, and that's my challenge.
Beautiful, beautifully said, very beautifully said. Stuart, and you're absolutely right. That has given so many people the doorway to
Yeah.
this miracle of a book. It's so much more than a book, even. It's just a whole way to live. And when you read the fourth part, there's four parts of the book. The fourth part is the life and teachings of Jesus.
That's right.
And
Over 800 pages.
and it just blows me away every single time. And I've been reading this. It absolutely is so
Yep.
much. You feel as though you're right there with Jesus. You're right there with him and his family and his apostles. And it's again, it's an incredible experience. It really is. Okay, well, wrapping that up, I'm just going to say, Stuart, you're amazing. Thank you so much. We're going to give you some dates for a part 2 and a part 3 because we've got a lot more to talk about, my friend, a lot more. And with that, I'm going to say this is Nick Curto for the URANTIA book. Take a look at what this book entails and what it can do for your life. It
Yeah.
will be one of the biggest moments of your life, I promise. And with that, I'll say good night. Much love to everyone, and I do mean everywhere, everywhere. Thank you.
And thank you both for an informative and very thought-provoking show. And thanks to all who tuned in now or who will tune in later. Until next time, joyous journeys and amazing adventures, my friend. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Much love to all. Much love.